Dr. Sella here. Happy Thanksgiving. And I'm going to say I'm thankful for these 15 triple option coaches. These are coaches that definitely, when I was younger, had helped me really form the business, the Triple Option Football Academy business. They really made an impact. This is in no particular order, but I will tell you this. Ivan Jasper gave me the best advice of any of the 15. And the advice he gave me 3 decades ago was, you better move the action key or else you're going to have problems. That was the truest statement I have ever heard in this offense. And if you're going to write anything down from this, write that down. You better move the action key or you're going to have problems, which means you better move the defender that is inside the read or you're going to have problems. Doesn't matter if you're running triple or midline. That's the strong man. It's spiritual warfare. That's the guy. That's the best piece of advice I ever got in the 4 decades I've run this offense. Ken Niumatalolo taught me 3 decades ago that when you teach this offense, use few words. Use as few words as possible. Just give them enough that they can create a visual picture in their head and they go out and do it. Because kids don't want to hear you talk. He said that 3 decades ago, and working with Generation Zers now, it's truer now than ever before. Ashley Ingram, absolutely, positively, has made such an impact on me the last 3 decades. I love his family to death. They're like my family, and I love them very, very much. Ashley Ingram taught me so many things. He was the first person to teach me how to run zone dive. Now it's blocked different now than it was, but he taught me how to do it. I'll never forget. We were at the Lewisburg Hotel, Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, many years ago, and he taught me how to do it. He taught me about the importance of using flex and heavy to build a wall in the C gap to make the defense pay for it in the D gap with the zone option and the toss. He also taught me that against a zero technique, you're most likely you're going to have to win the game in the C gap or the D gap against zero techniques. Unless you have a really, really good center, that's the case. Mick Yakitis, most underrated coach on this list. He's the receivers coach at Navy. Okay, in case you didn't know, Ivan's the offensive coordinator at Navy, Ken's the head coach at Navy, Ashley's the run game coordinator and centers and guards coach at Navy, mixed receivers coach at Navy. He's the most underrated coach. He helped me long before I was in business. Most important thing he taught me is you better be able to run triple, and if you can't, you better get into another formation and run triple. He taught me that many, many years ago. Mix of fundamentalists. He's extremely conservative. He is the most underrated coach on this list. Jason McDonald. He ran camps for me many, many years ago. I used to subcontract my camps, and he ran camps for me many, many years ago. Jason, most important thing he's taught me is what the B-back does on zone option and the visual pictures that you give the B-back on zone option. If you're going to option number 2, the B-back's got to clear the levels. He becomes a second to third level player. On the kick, he's a first to second to third level player, which you think that's common sense, but the key term, clear the levels, is very impactful. And Jason has been a big impact on me. Mike Judge, the most important thing Mike ever taught me. Now, Mike coaches with the Miami Dolphins now. He's a defensive assistant, but the most important thing I learned from Mike is the player that's on the midline is the player that's going to control the game. So if they give you a triple stack defense, you've got a zero technique, a midline Mike, and a free safety. There's 3 guys you got to control. So good chance you're going to have to win the game on the perimeter. In a 50 defense, if you block the nose, you win the game. In a 4-3 defense, if you block the Mike, you win the game. In a 4-2, 4-4, 6-2 defense, if you control the free safety, you control the game. Obviously, it starts with the action key, but the guy that's on the midline, he's the guy that you absolutely have to control along with the action key, of course. But when you play against a 50 defense, the zero technique is the alpha and the omega. No doubt about it. That's what I learned from Mike. Danny O'Rourke, I learned pretty much the same thing. He's currently the offensive tackles coach at Navy. Danny is so versatile as a coach. He's coached receivers, A-backs, tackles. I think at one point he actually coached B-backs, if I'm not mistaken. But Danny, same premise as Mike. It's basically whoever's on the midline. You got to be able to cancel that player. If you can't, you're going to have to win the game on the perimeter. So I learned that from him. Brent Thompson's the head coach of the Citadel. Brent, I've known Brent since he's making a lot less money than he makes right now. Of all the things I've learned from Brent, the biggest thing he helped me with was the rocket toss. 15 years ago, he called it the quick pitch. And he taught me the importance of so many details to get the rocket toss to go. Now, obviously, rocket toss is a concept that I don't even know if they're running it more than once a game. But I have to go through the data here. But nevertheless, when it was more popular, he taught me how to do it. He also taught me the importance of midline triple. The reality is you're lucky if you can get a stalemate at best. I'll never forget hearing that from him many, many years ago. But that's what I learned from Brent. Lou Conti. Lou Conti ran a few camps for me years ago. The most important thing I learned from Lou is about modernizing the offense. That you better have wide splits, and you're not going to be able to block your way out because eventually people get too good and you can't block your way out. That's the most important thing I learned from Lou. Ronnie Boyd, the most important thing I've learned from Ronnie Boyd, he is the centers and guards coach at the Citadel. Lou's the offensive coordinator at the Citadel. Brent's the head coach at the Citadel. But Ronnie Boyd, the most important thing I've learned from Ronnie is the importance of knee bend with your offensive line. That really knee bend is what generates positional leverage. And he spent so much time working on players other than obviously their strength and conditioning program, but really focusing on knee bending. Because that's how you gain physical leverage. And that's why you can't be fat and do this. Because fat guys can't bend. And so that's what I learned from him. Tom Seamy, known Tom a long time. He's the offensive tackles coach of the Citadel. He was at Army. He's been at Jacksonville. He's been at Lenore Ryan. Tom Seamy, the most important thing I learned from him is, hey, at the snap of the ball, you can make a 2-eye, a 2 technique, and you can make a 2 technique, a 2-eye technique by just positional leverage. That's the most important thing I learned from Tom Seamy. I also learned that if you're going to toss the ball against a 50 defense, somebody better, the backer better be blitzing. Either the backer better be blitzing or number 2 better be running to the quarterback, or else they're going to outnumber you on the perimeter. That's what I learned from Tom Seamy. Ian Shields is currently an analyst at UNLV. And he was the head coach at Jacksonville, head coach at Lenore Ryan, offensive coordinator at Army for years. He was at Cal Poly. He's been a lot of places. Ian, I learned a lot of things. The most important thing I learned from Ian is if your offensive line can't block the second level, you're not winning. So if you have an offensive lineman that can't block the mic, you're losing. Ivan taught me if you can't block the action key, you're losing. Ian taught me if your offensive line is that terrible where they can't block the mic, you're losing. So that's that. Bill Tripp was the offensive line coach at Army. He was the offensive tackles coach from 2009 to 2013. Bill Tripp had a very unique way of coaching, but he taught me a lot of things. Fundamental scoop blocker. He's a big believer in full scooping everything, where that you literally sprint belly button to hip, which now is what you have to do because most high schools you can't go to the ground on a first level block unless it's at the snap, which is a waste of time. But anyway, the other thing I learned from Bill Tripp is when the tackle releases inside, he's blocking for the dive. When the tackle releases outside, he's blocking for the quarterback. 3 decades ago, a switch kind of went off when I heard that, but that's the truth. That's what I learned from Bill Tripp, and I think he's retired, living on at Pismo Beach, California right now. Jeff Monken. I've known him a long time. He was making a lot less money when I met him. Jeff Monken, there's so many things I could go with Monk. And ultimately, it's the alignment of the A-back, how important that is. And that, look, the bottom line is, if your A-backs can't get to the spot where you need them to get to the spot, you got to move their alignment so they can get to the spot because you have what you have. And that's why if the A-backs are directly behind the tackle to run the pitch, that's okay. And it's also okay that if the A-backs are going to be involved on the zone dive, which they now are, you better move them up behind the tackle. And if they need to move deep so they can be there to catch the pitch, you do that. You do what you need to do at the A-back position with their alignment so they can do their job well. So there's not a one-size-fits-all thing to the A-back position. That's the most important thing I learned from Monk. Paul Johnson, there's endless things I've learned from Paul Johnson. I don't even know where to start to try to learn what the godfather of the modern day Flexbone Triple Option offense, to try to narrow it to one thing, is the greatest challenge of all. I can probably say that I miss him being in the business because he solved problems running inside veer, which he called 12 and 13. I think the coaches have kind of gone away from that at all three academies. And Paul always believed that everything you do comes off the triple. So that's really the number one thing I learned from Paul. I mean, it's endless. I'd probably say if I could pick one pure thing, it's don't worry as much about how the defense aligns. Concern yourself more with what they're making you do, because if they're letting you pull the ball, don't worry about what they're doing to the B-back. If 10 guys want to run to the B-back, all 10 of them don't matter. It's because the B-back's not going to have the ball. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing I've learned from Paul, but I could obviously write a book, and I try to do that on the tripleoptionfootball.com website. But I'm thankful for those 15 Flexbone Triple Option coaches. They've all made a major impact on my life. I will tell you, Ivan Jasper gave me the most important advice. If you're going to write anything down, write it down. You got to move the action key to win. He taught me that many, many, many years ago after they got whooped by Rutgers because they couldn't move the two technique. He said, Lou, you better move the action key or else you're done. And it's pretty much held true for the duration of time since he told me that. So I'm thankful for those 15 Flexbone Triple Option coaches. Coaches, if you're looking to run Army, Navy, and Air Force's modern-day offense the right way the first time, give me a call at 570-332-0265, 570-332-0265, and go to tripleoptionfootball.com/testimonials, where you can see all the success stories that have come out of the camps in the academy. And I'll see you in the next video. Happy Thanksgiving.